Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today we are getting back to UFO sightings in the state of Illinois. But before we begin, don't forget to like and comment on this video as it really helps my channel out and I very much appreciate it. Thank you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Mysterious light captured on film. From Chicago's America, September 1st, 1960. A picture has been taken of the mysterious object sighted for the first time over Chicago Friday night. The photograph was made the same evening at the tracking station maintained by the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation on Long Island and was forwarded to the National Space Surveillance Control Center at Bedford, Massachusetts, according to Robert I. Johnson, director of the Adler Planetarium. Celestial coordinates obtained from the picture, a mere streak of light across the black background of the sky, confirmed his own observations of an east-west flight pattern, said Johnson. However, the picture does not establish the flying object's identity, despite confirmation of its presence by the photo and observations by several independent groups, including Georgetown University astronomers. Future photos are planned if the object remains visible in the night sky, a spokesman from Grumman told Chicago's American by long-distance phone. He said, "We are definitely interested and are going to try to get a fix on it." A lack of information makes it almost impossible to accurately predict what the object may be, Johnson said. He explained, "We need several simultaneous sightings by trained observers before it will be possible to tell whether it is a small object traveling relatively close to Earth or a large body far in space." Letters from persons who say they have seen the reddish object are pouring in from all parts of the country, but many are not reliable, Johnson said. He explained, in most instances, there is just no way to tell whether the observers saw the same thing I did here. In other cases, it was obviously something else, such as aircraft lights. Both Johnson and the astronomers said the object traveled from east to west, the reverse of most natural astronomical bodies and all known man-made satellites, and its speed seemed about twice that of Echo 1, the United States balloon satellite. However, the Georgetown observers reported it to be considerably brighter than did Johnson. Busy night. Mysterious objects abound in BN sky, spotter reports. From the Bloomington Pantagraph, September 2nd, 1960. The Bloomington night has spawned one of the world's most prolific spotters of unidentified flying objects. He's Robert Glover of 405 Maysfield, who spotted and plotted 7 mysterious flashing objects between midnight and 5 a.m. Friday. His first sighting led to a call to the Pantagraph and sent night editor Virgil Hinshaw up to the roof of the Pantagraph building for a check. There it was. Mr. Hinshaw reported seeing a stationary object in the sky which flashed white to green to red. Mr. Glover, who was aided by binoculars, said the flashing was of the red only, the other colors stayed constant. Then at 1:20 a.m., a second object was spotted by Mr. Glover. Mr. Hinshaw again went to the roof, but saw nothing. He then went down to Washington Street and reports he saw it from that point. All 7 objects, said Mr. Glover, were stationary, a statement which perhaps brands them as a breed apart from the color-changing UFOs that have been spotted across the country this week. Mr. Glover said his objects flashed red for about an hour and then ceased, only to have another start flashing from another point almost immediately. And he said that even after the flashing stopped, the objects remained visible and looked like ordinary stars. The objects, he said, were apparently grouped in pairs. The flashing of a first would be followed by the appearance of a second object a bit to the right and a bit further down than its predecessor. He thinks the reason his observations ended with an uneven number in spite of his theory of pairs is that one sighting was of an object very near the horizon line. Its mate, he thinks, was below his line of vision. Each one flashed for about an hour, he said. Mr. Glover said that through binoculars the objects appeared to be cigar-shaped, set on end with the flashing red light on top. Observer Glover's concluding observation: the race to get the first man into space may not go to the country with the best scientists, but rather to the one with the best hitchhikers. UFO sighting here studied, from the Chicago Tribune, Sunday, May 25, 1969. An unidentified flying object that beams a dazzling ray of light to the ground has been reported in the Palatine Lake Zurich area and is being investigated by members of Northwestern University's astronomy department, it was learned yesterday. The object, which was described as saucer-shaped, frightened two teenage boys and caused the owner of a stable to wake up his employees to look at it. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, director of the astronomy department, said the reports of the object appeared genuine, and that he is continuing an investigation into the matter to determine if the UFO can be explained. You have to conclude from talking to these people that they are either badly mistaken or that they really did see an unusual object in the sky, he said. Dr. Hynek, who has been a UFO investigator for the Air Force for 20 years, said that descriptions of the object that flew over Lake Zurich bear striking similarities to other UFOs reported in America and other countries. At least 3 independent reports of the object, which was sighted in the night of May 12th, have been made. Dr. Hynek asked that anyone else who saw the object in the Palatine Lake Zurich area between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. call him. The preliminary investigation has shown that neither the Glenview Naval Air Station nor any of the other airports in the area had helicopters or any other aircraft in the area at that time, Dr. Hynek said. The first to report the UFO was Greg Luch at 210 North Schubert Street, Palatine. He and Alan Prouty, 949 Kenilworth Terrace, Lake Zurich, first sighted the object from their car at Illinois Highway 53 near Dundee Road. Luch said he first thought the object was a light on top of a radio tower, and that a flash that was emitted came from a bird being electrocuted on the wires. But when he drove past a clump of trees, the UFO came into view. It was saucer-shaped, like a World War I English helmet. It had a concave indentation in the center of the underside, with a large light in it, Luch said. The light went on and off a number of times, emitting a brilliant beam, he said. The UFO nosed down at one point, and from the front it appeared oval with 3 large headlights at what appeared to be the forward section, he said. Smaller red and white lights, which were located 3/4 of the way around the rim of the UFO, kept blinking on and off, Luch said. The boys went to Prouty's home 2 blocks away and again saw the object from the roof of the house. We were pretty upset, Luch said. We had to lie down on the roof to keep from falling off because it came so close. The object made an unusual humming noise that would rise and fall in pitch in a regular pattern, he said. A neighbor's dog began barking when the UFO came back into view, Luch said. The unusual bright light of the object also attracted the attention of Morton Conlon, owner of the Rolling Green Stables in Lake Zurich. Conlon said he first saw the object between 9 and 10 p.m. with 2 other men. When he got back to his stable, he watched it as it flew around emitting flashes of brilliant light at about 8-second intervals. The light came straight down and flashed brightly like a giant flashbulb going off, Conlon said. He said it lit up a large area on the ground. Conlon, who flies small airplanes himself, said the lights were not landing lights from an airplane. Furthermore, the object had 2 red lights on it instead of the normal red and green lights on an airplane, he said. He said he couldn't tell the shape of the object because when the lights went off, he couldn't see anything. I got the impression that it could have been someone taking night photographs from an airplane, but I don't know why they would want to photograph this area, he said. Conlon described the noise as sounding at first like a prop airplane when it was far away, and then like a jet when it was overhead. He said he woke up several of his employees, but by the time they came outside, the object had vanished. Dr. Hynek said he interviewed the 2 youths separately, and both made nearly identical drawings of the object. From their descriptions, the object may have been about 50 feet in diameter, he said. Flying saucer buffs meet. Here APRO.net explained. From the Centralia, Illinois Sentinel, Monday, June 30th, 1969. Have alien beings traveled eons across the night to observe a couple billion inhabitants of a small planet way out in the suburbs of the galaxy? A growing number of Earthlings think so, and about 75 of them met yesterday at the Boulder access area to Carlisle Lake to eat chicken and potato salad and talk about their favorite things, flying saucers. The group heard Arthur Epstein, Afton, Missouri, say, "There's no doubt there is something in the atmosphere that comes back with a planned regularity." Epstein, a founder of the Greater St. Louis Unidentified Flying Object Study Group, believes there are UFOs, that they are solid objects and intelligently guided. This seems to be the consensus of UFO hunters, and they refer to it as the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Stated more simply, they believe advanced forms of life from somewhere else are watching us. Members of the Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization seek to gather enough information to graduate this idea into a full-blown theory. APRO, with headquarters in Tucson, Arizona, has a national network of observation groups designed to channel possible UFO sightings to a central point where they are plotted, cataloged, and computerized. Field workers are dispatched to talk to people who report sightings and document them however best they can. What APRO wants is material. Walter Andrus, Quincy, gave an outline of the APRO.net with special emphasis on the breakdown in Illinois and the still embryonic Midwest UFO net. Andrus said many of the best sightings are never reported because people are reluctant to say they saw something, and perhaps be thought a little nutty. He added that this attitude is changing, that more and more people are reporting UFOs, that it is now respectable. In spite of this new respectability, UFO hunters appear sensitive to ridicule. They take UFOs seriously, and although they exhibit a lot of flying saucer humor among themselves, levity from an outsider makes some of them clutch a little. It is generally felt the news media have done a negative job of reporting on UFOs, and most are convinced the Air Force is hiding something on the matter. Epstein said it's a court-martial offense in the Air Force to even talk about UFOs. Recently, a UFO study was conducted by Dr. Edward U. Condon of the University of Colorado. The lengthy report is now in print. The paperback version is nearly an inch thick and takes a negative view of UFOs. Apparently, the report has not discouraged UFO hunters. On the contrary, it seems to have whetted their appetite. APRO members say the report admits that there are UFOs and that some observations of objects cannot be explained, thus leaving the door of speculation open. John Schuessler, engineer from St. Louis, stood before a board illustrating concepts of flying saucers and captioned, "Flying saucers are real," and said of the Condon report, "Not-type investigations produce not-type answers." APRO's three big questions are: 1. Are there really UFOs? 2. Where are they from? And 3. Who occupies them? And how about, why are they here? Makes you feel a little like a member of an ant farm on somebody's desk. The picnic and meeting was handled by Mrs. R.E. Holmes of Carlisle. Mrs. Holmes is head of the local organization in the APRO.net. If you see anything you think is a UFO, call her and she'll feed it to the APRO headquarters. UFOs light sky. UI psychology professor watches it split. From the Campaign Urbana, Illinois Courier, September 1st, 1970. A mysterious light in the sky that was clearly not an airplane was reported to the Campaign Police Monday night by Robert Peterson, 2002 South Linwood Drive. Peterson, an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Illinois, gave this report of the unidentified flying object. My wife and youngster and I were riding bicycles Monday night. We were stopped at the corner of Mattis and Kirby Avenues, facing south after walking our bikes across the intersection. We just happened to look off to the left when we saw a very bright white light. It was easily the brightest light in the sky. As we watched, the light split into two lights, a red one and a white one. The red light floated slowly down until it disappeared, and the white light continued to hover for a short time. It was dimmed somewhat after the red light split away. Then the white light began moving away in a southwesterly direction, slowly enough that we could follow it easily. The whole thing lasted perhaps 2 or 3 minutes. Peterson said he and his family watched the lights but did not immediately tell anyone, so he does not know if anyone else saw them. After both lights had disappeared, he called the campaign police, who referred him to James Wright, a U of I student and authority on UFO sightings in the area. Mr. Wright asked to come out and together we will recreate the scene. He said that sometimes these things repeat themselves in the same area. Wright could not be reached this morning to comment on the sighting, believed to be the first in the area in several months. Although he acknowledges the UFO sighting was in the general area of the U of I Willard Airport, Peterson says what he saw was not an airplane. UFO sighted in Dupo area. From the Cahokia Herald, October 15, 1970. Russell Griffin, 16, of RR1 Dupo, reported to the sheriff's office he sighted an unidentified flying object at 9 p.m. Sunday near his home. Russell said the object dropped to about 2,200 feet from the east and then zoomed into the sky. He said it was long and glowed white with colored lights at each end. Russell's report was transmitted to Scott Air Force Base authorities. Mrs. Paulette Rodenberg of RR2, Mascota, also reported having seen one of the objects Sunday for the second time in 9 days. The first sighting occurred October 4th. Brilliant white disk is spotted over Rockford. From the Rockford Morning Star, Sunday, February 4th, 1951. A brilliant white disk, perfectly round and larger than an airplane, was reported Sunday night by 4 Rockford residents who said they spotted the object moving through the sky about 7:15 p.m. Mr. and Mrs. John Erlandson, 1728 Rural Street, rushed to a nearby fire station to report the weird object after they spotted it quite high in the sky while they were driving near the intersection of 20th Ave and 11th Street. While in the fire station, Erlandson said Lawrence Swenson and his son John of 2120 17th Avenue came into the station to report that they had seen the same object. Erlandson said it was almost impossible to estimate the size of the object, but that from the ground it appeared even larger than an airplane would while flying at a low altitude. The disk headed west across the south part of Rockford, Erlandson said, and appeared to be followed by a trail of fireworks. It seemed to be moving through the sky slightly faster than an airplane would. Sight UFO at Bushnell. From the Macomb Journal, September 5th, 1970. UFOs. Those unidentified flying objects have been scoffed at by many over the years, but 2 young Bushnell men who previously may have had serious doubts are now thoroughly convinced they are for real. They spotted one Thursday night over Bushnell. Alan Robinson, 22, of 752 Dean Street, reports he and Steve St. Clair, 20, also of Bushnell, sighted one hovering over the McDonough FS grain bins in the southwest part of Bushnell about 9 p.m. Thursday while en route home from Macomb. Robinson said the object, which he estimated was about the size of an average automobile, was hovering over the bin site at approximately 300 feet. He said the object was giving off a blinding white light, which made it impossible to describe the shape of the object. The object was first sighted over Bushnell as they approached town from the west, on Route 9, Robinson said. Robinson said the object was still hovering over the grain bins when they arrived in town, and they drove toward the farm elevator property to investigate. When they were about 2 blocks away, he stated, the object started to move away. Robinson said the light appeared to dim somewhat for a second or two, then turned bright again and headed in a westerly direction at a high rate of speed. He estimated the object was out of sight in about 30 seconds. Own sweat, funds, will continue UFO probes, expert says. From the Peoria Journal-Star, June 14, 1970. One of the world's foremost authorities on unidentified flying objects predicted last night that he and other investigators will have to continue their study of UFOs in the coming years through our own sweat and using our own funds. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, speaking at the day-long Midwest UFO conference at Bradley University, said the U.S. Air Force's discontinuance of Project Blue Book and a University of Colorado report critical of flying saucer studies have undercut serious attempts to explain UFOs. The Air Force's Project Blue Book, responsible for investigating UFO sightings, was discontinued last year on recommendation of the Colorado report, which concluded that most sightings were such ordinary things as airplanes, satellites, weather balloons, clouds, planets, and birds. We have a phenomena that is worthy of investigation, Hynek asserted. We have Blue Book closed and the heavy hand of the Colorado report, but we still have UFO sighting reports. The fact is, they, UFOs, do exist. Hynek, director of the Astronomy Department and Lindheimer Research Center at Northwestern University, said, more and more persons are becoming intellectually bothered by the UFO problem when they take the time to look into it. One of the difficulties of UFO research, which the former Air Force consultant characterized as a strange, complex, interdisciplinary problem, is simply data gathering and data processing. After 20 years of investigating, I'm still at the elementary stage of trying to get the facts, Hynek stated. My own burning desire in each report is, did it really happen the way the report said it happened? He said that most UFO data are undifferentiated anecdotal accounts of sightings, and added that future reports must be more quantitative than qualitative. To say that a UFO moved up very fast is not enough, Hynek declared. We must know how fast, what the acceleration was, and at what angle it moved away. The answer can only come through data. Gearing his talk, entitled UFOs in the 70s, a positive program, toward members of the audience as potential investigators, Hynek stressed the importance of accuracy in reports of sightings. Our problem is not a scarcity of data. We are submerged, but most of it is poor, he said. I'm really concerned about what can be done in the next decade. You can't have respectable UFO cases unless you have respectable data. He advised members of the audience to specialize in a particular area of UFO study, such as nocturnal lights, daylight sightings, and physical effects on persons and animals. Progress in UFOs will be made by dedicated individuals in the next few years using their own funds and specializing in one area, he advised. I'm not worried about funds. If a person's really dedicated, he'll get the job done. Frustration in the field comes when you try to accomplish too much. Hynek warned against mixing good observations with theory. Data painstakingly put together will stand the test of time. Theories come and go down the drain. He said his own area of specialization is credibility of witnesses. The better you know a person, the better you can judge his credibility. I want to know as much about a witness as about what he saw, he said. The aspects of sincerity in an individual are what I want to study, Hynek added. My desire is to see what made a UFO sighting an event for a witness. In the final analysis, he said, bringing scientific recognition to the UFO problem boils down to upgrading the data about UFOs. The 70s will be grim, not jolly, Hynek warned. We must depend entirely on ourselves and other individuals' bond is dedication to the study of UFOs. The saucer expert declared that in the special field of UFO study, our instruments are people, and said that during the present period of relatively little official action in studying UFOs, dedicated investigators must prepare for the day which will mark the biggest breakthrough in human thinking ever to hit this planet. The featured speaker at the afternoon session of the conference, which began at 9:30 a.m., was Mrs. Coral E. Lawrenson, Secretary of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization of Tucson, Arizona. Speaking on the topic of UFOs, 1970, an up-to-date report, Mrs. Lawrenson discussed reported UFO sightings since January 1, 1969. She said there have been 765 reported UFO sightings since then, all of which have been investigated by APRO personnel, including field representatives. The UFO problem is a wild subject, she said. If we are to solve it, we must examine the wild reports as well as the reliable reports. Concentrating her talk on reports involving sightings of occupants aboard unidentified spacecraft, Mrs. Lawrenson, who founded APRO with her husband 20 years ago, related the story of two nurses in a British Columbia hospital who reportedly witnessed two tall men in a bubble atop a circular spacecraft hovering near the hospital. This sighting occurred January 1, 1970, she added. A nurse standing near the window saw the two men who were also witnessed by a second nurse. After watching the craft for a few seconds, the two nurses called 4 others to the window, but by that time the spacecraft had moved too far away for the figures to be seen. Mrs. Lawrenson then briefly discussed a theory which holds, in effect, that UFOs are in some way responsible for power blackouts which have hit various parts of the nation during the past several years. To illustrate the theory, she showed a graph which depicted a remarkable similarity between the number of UFO sightings and the incidence of power blackouts in this country, noting that many persons consider UFOs infallible because they've never crashed or left any physical evidence of their presence behind. Mrs. Lawrenson reported that, in fact, her organizations have collected over the years a substantial number of materials recovered at reputed UFO landing sites. Among the evidence collected, she said, is a piece of metal covered by some unknown type of insulation which changed its color from yellow with white stripes to beige with brown stripes after its discovery. In conclusion, Mrs. Lawrenson said that although she does not expect APRO to be able to unlock all the UFO mysteries in coming years, she hopes the organization will be able to throw much light on the situation. Another speaker at the afternoon session was John F. Schuessler, a senior design engineer for McDonnell Douglas Aeronautics in St. Louis, Missouri, who discussed possible techniques of interplanetary spaceflight, including heretofore unknown means of propulsion. Schuessler, a life support engineer for the Gemini space programs of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and obviously a firm believer in the existence of flying saucers, said that as a primary means of power, the smoke and fire breathing jet engine is ancient, although it could be used as an auxiliary power source. Referring to the U.S. space program, he added, "As we look around us, we see something outperforming us in every way, the UFO. It's high time we spend the time, money, and energy to find new means of powering spacecraft." It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a UFO. From the Centralia Sentinel, Friday, September 11th, 1970. Wednesday night, around 9:30, Mrs. Arnold Gluck, her daughter Kathy, Mr. and Mrs. Bill Duprero, and their daughter Debbie had gathered outside the Gluck residence at 615 West Kell Street to watch the daughters work on a school project. Mrs. Duprero suddenly noticed what appeared to be a falling star in the sky. 5 pairs of eyes focused on a brightly lit object with flashing white lights and 1 red blinking light. It wasn't a falling star, they think, nor was it a plane, jet, or satellite. It was an unidentified flying object, a UFO. Descriptions of the object ranged within the group from cigar shape to bright around the edges, as if a light were shining behind it, to a monstrous tail light fading away from you. The size and the fact that it made no sound didn't really surprise me, said Mrs. Gluck, but the speed was too fast, so much faster than anything I've ever seen. The path the object took as it moved across the sky, appearing and reappearing, also surprised the group. It was coming from the south the first time, Dupero said, going towards St. Louis. He said it then made a turn directly east, right over Centralia, disappeared, and returned 3 or 4 minutes later, again going towards St. Louis. The next time it appeared, here it came again from the east, going to St. Louis, Dupero continued, and it came back from the east, again going towards St. Louis. Mrs. Gluck confirms Dupero's description. She says it appeared around the moon area, then moved from the southwest to the northeast. Then it disappeared, she said, only to reappear traveling from east to west. 5 minutes later, it reappeared, going west to east. It was really moving, she said. The form was something I've never seen. All 5 persons took turns looking at the object through the Gluck's binoculars, hoping, in the words of Dupero, that it would come closer so we could see more. They don't think it was an illusion or a reflection off the moon, nor do they think it was a plane, jet, or satellite. In addition to the 5 persons who originally saw the object, 4 others, Susan Gluck, Brenda Smith, and 2 neighbors also saw it the last 2 times it appeared. The watchers cite the absence on the object of a green light usually found on aircraft, and the fact that there was no sound and the tremendous speed. A somewhat skeptical spokesman from the Scott Air Force Base said yesterday that there are always aircraft from our base flying over your area. He said the absence of a green light may have been caused by the angle of the aircraft's wings, that the lack of sound would depend upon many variables, including temperatures and wind direction, and that what appeared to be great speed may have been caused by an object flying closer to the ground. He added that Scott Air Force Base does not receive reports of UFOs, now that Blue Book, the commission which negated the presence of UFOs, is closed. Nonetheless, Mrs. Gluck was so convinced that what she had seen was not an ordinary air vehicle that she has contacted a woman in Carlisle who takes surveys of UFOs spotted in this area. But surrealistic experiences must sooner or later give way to realistic thinking. As one member of the group said to the others, "If you tell anyone about this tomorrow, they'll think you're crazy." Three report falling object. From the Decatur Daily Review. Tuesday, February 2nd, 1971. An unidentified flying object, or at least an unidentified falling object, was seen this morning by at least 3 Decatur residents. One, a newspaper carrier, called the Daily Review to report that as he was delivering his papers, about 5:30 a.m., he saw a fireball in the southern sky. Another, a patient in St. Mary's Hospital, called to report that he watched from his hospital window as what looked like a meteorite fell. He cited the falling object about 5:30 and said he could see the reflection of the object on the ice of Lake Decatur. The third UFO spotter was a Macon County Sheriff's deputy who was on patrol near the intersection of Pershing Road and North Water Street when he saw the object. He said it looked as if it were falling into the southeastern part of the county. A check of area county sheriffs revealed that a truck driver driving from Bloomington to Decatur reported seeing a fireball in the sky to the south as he passed through Hayworth about 5:30. A Christian County Sheriff's deputy also spotted the object. He reported that it lit up the sky and appeared to be in the direction of Assumption. An information officer at Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul reported late this morning that the only report of the UFO which his office had confirmed was from the Macon County Sheriff's Office. More UFOs sighted around SSU. From the Springfield Spectrum, October 12, 1971. Sangamon State University student John Wells, 21, is a clerk at the Illinois State Police District 9 headquarters just south of Springfield. Wells is also one of the scores of police and members of the public that watched in fascination as several unidentified flying objects danced around in the central Illinois sky last week. Some of the objects were reported to be at treetop level by police officials in Jacksonville. Wells said that he watched one object west of the state police headquarters as it hovered between 300 and 3,000 feet above the ground. To the naked eye, said Wells, the object appeared to be white with red flashes, but through a 20-powered telescope, the colors changed to yellow and blue-green with flashes of red. It appeared to be round, said Wells, but because of the distance, I couldn't estimate its size. Wells said the object suddenly disappeared from his handheld telescope, and when I looked up, it was gone. The object, said Wells, returned about 5 minutes later. State police spokesman said that one patrol car dispatched to the Kincaid area reported seeing 4 small objects and 1 large UFO at varying altitudes. One of the objects then headed towards the Springfield area, the spokesman said. State Police Patrol Car 22 followed another object towards Jacksonville, where other police cars continued the visual observations. Police officials said speculation about one of the objects centered on the possibility of it being an airplane, but noted the UFO's lack of motion. The Air National Guard at Capitol Airport said it had no helicopters in the air at the time, and there weren't any airplanes on the ground under the control of the Guard in Springfield. The University of Illinois Observatory and another observatory in Oakland were contacted by the state police, but said any such objects would have to be 20,000 feet in altitude before they could spot them. Police officials said the 2 observatories had nothing in sight. Scott Air Force Base was also contacted by the state police. The Air Force said that since the Project Blue Book investigation into UFOs had been discontinued, there would be no military investigation of the reports. Unidentified flying object reported. From the Quincy Herald-Whig, February 20th, 1972. A rural Quincy woman and her daughter spotted a small, lighted, unidentified flying object traveling along Illinois 96 near Payson Thursday night, according to Walt Andrus, director of the Midwest Unidentified Flying Object Network. The woman and her daughter were driving east on Illinois 96, just east of Payson Road, at about 9:50 p.m. Thursday, when a bright light in the sky heading towards them from the east turned sharply south, paralleling the car's path, and then passed over the car 75 feet or 100 feet above it, near the Hurlman Road, Andrus said. The woman and her daughter reported the object appeared to be about 5 feet in diameter, with 2 pods or legs extending downward from a dimly lighted dish-like central object. Red, green, and white lights appeared to be attached to the legs, moving with the object, and illuminated the legs. The red lights were the same size on each leg, Andrus said. After the object crossed over the top of the car and continued south, the 2 stopped the car and watched the object for a few minutes from a trailer court along Illinois 96. The 2 observed the object for about 5 minutes, Andrus said. Andrus said the Federal Aviation Authority at Baldwin Field reported no flights in that area at that time. It is possible, Andrus said, that there were private flights in the area, of which the FAA had no knowledge. Andrus also noted it would have been unlikely for a private plane or craft to have been flying to or from a private airstrip in that area, because the airstrip is not lighted and not equipped for night flights. Andrus also noted that, according to the report of the two, the object was traveling faster than a conventional aircraft and was very quiet. The witnesses said no sound seemed to come from the object. The weather report for that night, according to Andrus, states among other facts that winds were gusting at between 24 and 32 knots and that visibility was 15 miles. Skeptical space writer sees a UFO. From Chicago Today, July 20th, 1972. This hard-to-convince reporter has been writing about flying saucers and unidentified flying objects for 20 years. Last night I saw my first UFO. Don't ask me what it was. I can't explain it, though I like to think I know as much about such phenomena as anybody in the business. But judge for yourself. I had turned out the light prior to retiring for the evening. I had set the alarm and the illuminated clock read 10:42 p.m. I looked out the window prior to closing my eyes when I saw it, a blinking red light much like the flashing anti-collision light on aircraft. It was going from north to southeast over Lake Michigan. I have no idea how high it was, but it was well above the level of my windows, which are on the 38th floor. Incidentally, the windows face north and provide an unobstructed view of Lake Michigan and the sky. The night was clear enough for me to see several stars toward the northeast. What caught my attention about the flashing red light was that it was traveling at an incredibly high speed. Again, it is difficult to guess how fast, but I would liken it to the apparent speed of a 600 mph jet flying by at a distance of no more than half a mile. I have seen many jets at that distance, so I know the speed. The point is, airplanes never fly that close to our building, and besides, this mysterious red light did something no aircraft could do. As it flashed from north to southeast, it suddenly stopped, reversed course sharply, and appeared to fly along a downward curve in the opposite direction. As it approached a point near what would be the horizon in daylight, it suddenly blinked out and disappeared. I have seen most of the objects that account for the overwhelming percentage of flying saucer reports. I have seen weather balloons, aircraft reflecting sunlight, satellites, and parts of spacecraft burning up on re-entry into the atmosphere. I have seen meteorites and lightning and reflections of ground light in the sky. But I have never before seen any object that behaves so contrary to the law of physics. A few months ago, I chatted with Dr. J. Allen Hynek, chairman of the Department of Astronomy at Northwestern University and one of the world's ranking authorities on flying saucers. He has just written a book, The UFO Experience, a Scientific Inquiry, in which he asserts that he is not satisfied that the case for the existence of UFOs has been put to rest. I remember telling him that if there really was something to UFOs, I would think about time after 20 years of writing about them that I would encounter one. He laughingly replied, "Well, maybe you will one day soon." Last night, I did. No, I don't think it was a spaceship piloted by little green men from Mars, or indeed any other planet. However, it was by all odds the strangest, least explainable light in the sky that I have ever seen. And no, I had not been partying. The only beverage I had last night was a soft drink. Of course, I did have some egg foo young for supper. Something up there. Was that strange object our reporters saw in the sky really just an airplane? From the Chicago News, May 11th, 1973. There are no flying saucers around here, the voice of the Daily News reporter Keith Bromery crackled over the speaker of the two-way radio on the Daily News city desk. I'm in the Ned Brown Forest Preserve right now, and you can see some streetlights through the mist, and there are some red lights on top of some radio towers near here, Bromery reported. Maybe that's what all these people saw, the lights reflecting off the mist. Bromery had been assigned to check out reports from police and residents of at least 7 west and northwest suburbs that they had seen numerous unidentified flying objects Thursday night. Police switchboards in Elk Grove Village, Hoffman Estates, Schaumburg, Glenview, Arlington Heights, DePlain, and Park Ridge have been flooded with calls from people reporting the UFOs. Several people said they had seen 9 objects, pulsating lights, hovering over the treetops of the Ned Brown Forest Preserve at Higgins Road and Rollwing Road in Schaumburg. "I'm at the Illinois State Police Post in Des Plaines," Bromery reported minutes later to the city desk over his car radio. "You can see airplanes coming into O'Hare Airport. Some of them are shining lights to locate the runway, I guess. Maybe that's what these people saw." At least 1 state trooper from the Des Plaines Post and 9 suburban policemen, including 4 from Schaumburg, one of them a lieutenant, reported sighting the objects. A police radio operator in Elk Grove Village said he went to the front door of the station after the calls started coming in, and saw 9 white pulsating lights hovering over the treetops and moving from east to west. A woman radio operator for the Elk Grove Village Fire Department reported she saw a triangular object with red and white lights. Lieutenant James Dillon of the Schaumburg Police said the emergency lights on his squad car were inoperable during the sightings. They worked well before and since. Suddenly, Bromery's voice barked over the speaker again. "Something's happening. There's something going on up there," he said. "I'm not so sure now. I thought it was an airplane at first. Suddenly, these 2 lights, one was just hovering overhead and the other came in from the east. They just merged. It looks like they came together. There's just a triangle up there now. White lights at the corners and a red light pulsating in the center. It's just hovering up there. It looks like it's just standing still in the sky." There was a pause. "I'm not sure what I saw," he said. His voice was calmer now and he spoke more softly. "I'll call you on the telephone." Several minutes passed before Bromery telephoned. "I just had a cup of coffee," he said. There was a chuckle to his voice. "It was just an airplane. But I see how you can confuse it for, well, something else. I can see how people could think they were UFOs." At the Schaumburg police station, an officer who answered the phone said he couldn't talk about the UFO sightings. "We've got an emergency situation here," he said. "We're getting too many calls in for me to talk now." UFOs light suburbs and switchboards. From Chicago Today, May 11th, 1973. Hundreds of Northwest suburban residents saw an unexplained display of 9 bright, pulsating lights that hovered in the sky last night. The lights, which prompted hundreds of phone calls to the suburban police, sometimes zoomed off at a high rate of speed. At other times, they remained stationary for as long as 25 minutes. Most observers of the phenomena, which appeared to move independently of each other, agreed they were hovering over the Ned Brown Forest Preserve at Interstate Highway 90 and Illinois Highway 72 in unincorporated Elk Grove Township. "It was the weirdest thing I ever saw," said Sergeant Fred Schmidt of the Schaumburg Police Department. Illinois State Police, in attempting to explain the sighting, said the lights were from planes landing at O'Hare International Airport. The National Weather Service tended to back this assessment, explaining that a combination of fog and atmospheric conditions at O'Hare caused the illusion. However, few who saw this display would accept this theory, explaining that the lights would move at times and remain stationary at others. Moreover, the residents are accustomed to air traffic lights at O'Hare. Schmidt, who witnessed the lights with at least 4 other Schaumburg policemen, said he was in his patrol car at Old Schaumburg Road and I-90. "They looked like round vapor lights," he said. "They were very large and they were pulsating. There were 9, and they were staggered," he said. "They were there between 9:30 and 10 p.m. when I saw them. Some were stationary. Others moved up and down. At one point, they disappeared below the tree level, and we thought they might have touched down in the preserve. Then we saw them rise up again to about 1,000 feet. He said there was no noise from the lights. I wasn't scared, he added, but curious. On the other hand, if they landed next to me, that would be something else. Elk Grove Police, as well as Illinois State Police and Cook County Sheriff's Police, entered the forest preserve looking for the UFOs. Nothing was found. Most of the sightings were reported in the Schaumburg area. Murfreesboro man reports sighting. Did the Piedmont UFO visit Grand Tower? From the Southern Illinoisan, March 25, 1973. Oscar Wills of Murfreesboro didn't believe in flying saucers when he checked in for work at the CIPS Tower Station in Grand Tower Thursday night. But since about 9:15 that night, he's been a firm believer. That's when, after several phone calls from Grand Tower residents, he went out to check on a brightly illuminated object reported to be hovering over the power station's 69,000-volt transformer. Wills said the disc-like thing he saw glowed with a lot of pretty high-intensity lights that pulsed and changed in color from red to white. The unidentified flying object, which he estimated to be about 1,500 feet high and about 25 to 30 feet wide, remained hovering as he approached a transformer about 250 yards north of the power plant, he said. I walked about 150 or 200 yards and stopped, he said. I wasn't going any further. I got a little bit scared, Wills added. The longer I went, the shakier I got. He said he watched the object for about 3 or 4 minutes before it began moving toward the Mississippi River, going pretty fast. Wills, an operating engineer who has worked for CIPS for 30 years, said the amazing characteristic of the UFO was its silence. All engines have a power sound, he said, but this one didn't have any. It moved with no noise or effort. Willis Hughes of Grand Tower, a CIPS employee for 32 years and the first person to notify Wills of the lights over the transformer, said the object was well lit and beamed amber, red, and green lights. Hughes said he watched the lights for about 45 minutes from his home, about 3 miles from the transformer. Wills said he reported what he saw to his superintendent Friday morning, who then passed the story along to the company's headquarters in Springfield. Wills said he didn't report the sighting to police because I was just going to keep it to myself. Wills' sighting of the UFO followed only by a day in the latest series of reports of similar objects being seen in Piedmont, Missouri, about 125 miles south of St. Louis. Since a Piedmont high school coach reported to police a month ago that his car was followed by a bright light which alternated colors between amber, green, white, and red, Piedmont area law enforcement officers had received hundreds of reports of UFO sightings. Family reports a UFO. From Suburban Life, June 23, 1973. A Westchester woman and her children driving their car home on Roosevelt Road Sunday night came up the viaduct over the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad tracks and looked out to the west ahead of them to see what. They still don't know, according to the woman, who asked that her name be withheld from print when she reported the incident to the Suburban Life Tuesday. Giving the account offered Elmhurst and Westchester police 2 days earlier, the woman said that, upon the sighting, she had continued driving her family past their Westchester turnoff toward the square light with 2 fiery tails high in the sky. They drove to a spot between York Road and Route 83 where it seemed to hover, though she couldn't tell at what distance. That's the same question everyone asks, and I couldn't tell, she told the Life. When we got under it, all we could see was a red light, then nothing. But nobody has given a real explanation yet. The woman said that Westchester police had told her that night there were several sightings reported, But when the Life talked with Police Chief Edward Puglia Tuesday, he said that no UFO complaints had been recorded on the blotter Sunday or any other day in recent Westchester history. UFO seen in city skies. From the Collinsville Herald, April 30th, 1973. Collinsville police, who don't have too many reports of unidentified flying objects, got one at 9:06 p.m. last Monday night. Richard Barker, age 15, of 443 South Clinton, turned in a report of a UFO in the southern sky. Barker, who didn't believe in flying saucers before, isn't quite as sure now. He says he and several neighbors were sitting out on the family car when they first saw the object go over. Barker teased the others, saying it was a UFO. Actually, he said, no one could figure out what it was, but they got another chance. The object came back lower in the sky. It came to a dead stop about half a mile away. While it was moving, it cast a flashing red light, which changed to another color and then went back to red. But when it stopped, a big white light appeared, Barker explained. The object made no sound. The police suggested to Barker that the object could possibly be a balloon. He was most skeptical over this explanation, however. Several neighbors also saw the UFO, although one, Charles Giovando, looked but didn't see anything. Barker says he now believes many people don't report UFOs because people think you're crazy. Collinsville police relayed the sighting to Scott Air Force Base. Officials say they get 4 or 5 UFO reports every month. They don't do any investigating. Instead, they forward the reports to the FAA at Lambert Field. UFO sighted near Divernon. From the Jacksonville Courier, June 3, 1973. An unidentified flying object was sighted by a Jacksonville man and his friends about 2:15 to 2:30 a.m. on Saturday near Divernon, south of Springfield. Ed Fernandez, who lives on East Court Street, said it was an interesting event, but that he could not explain what it was. I know I saw something, but what it was I cannot say other than it was different, he said. Fernandez says he first noticed the UFO because of a series of what he described as bright running lights, much like one would see on any other aircraft. He said suddenly a large orange-red light was turned on beneath the UFO, which lit up the entire landscape. He couldn't tell if it was from one source of several lights, but it was all from the same craft. He said he stopped and turned the engine of his auto off, got out and watched about 10 or 15 minutes. There wasn't a sound, he said. And there was an airplane flying high overhead, which we heard. This was much closer, perhaps 1,000 feet away, some 500 feet off the ground. The unusual item moved quickly to the north, then seemed to travel around the city of Springfield to the west. Police play UFO tag through 2 counties. From the Register Star, November 4th, 1973. Personnel from 6 northern Illinois law enforcement agencies reported seeing a round, amber-colored light in the sky over DeKalb and Ogle counties Saturday between 4:20 and 5:10 a.m. First to spot the object, described as oval-shaped and amber or orange in color, were 2 Northern Illinois University security police officers, John O'Donnell and John Hunter, at 4:20 a.m. Hunter saw the object in the western sky about 60 degrees above the horizon and called O'Donnell out to see it. O'Donnell said they watched the object for 15 minutes, then reported it to other law enforcement agencies. At first we thought it was Venus, O'Donnell said, then added, "We are convinced it was not a planet." He said the other police units they contacted thought we were crazy at first, but then they too saw the object move up and down and back and forth. The same object, or one like it, was spotted by DeKalb County Sheriff units near the Ogle-DeKalb County line at 4:55 a.m. It then was observed by Ogle County Deputy Sheriff Jess Suter, who followed the object along Illinois 64 from Esmond Corners to the outskirts of Oregon. Suter said the object appeared to be moving away from him at the same speed it had been traveling. Then he said it appeared to stop, hover, and suddenly shrink rapidly in size. It went from the size of a softball down to the size of a golf ball, Suter said. He said the object maintained the same altitude and distance from him, about 4 miles, as he followed. Then, west of Oregon, it seemed to suddenly speed up and disappear. Suter said he was real curious to see what the object was. One day in 1968, while we were combining grain, my son and I saw an amber-colored thing in the sky, Suter said. It was real close, about a 1/4 mile away, and it was huge. I can't even describe how big it was. Suter said the object he and his son saw hovered noiselessly at treetop height for about 30 seconds. Then the amber light went out like a TV tube, down to a bright spot in the center, and the object disappeared. People say you're nuts, but both my son and I know what we saw, Suter said. The Saturday morning UFO appeared again at 5:14 a.m., this time over Mount Morris. It looked like a baseball, flat on the bottom, and it was red or amber-like, said Forreston policeman Robert Bunnell, who spotted it over Mount Morris from the corner of Illinois 72 and Columbine Road in Forreston. Bunnell said the object was hovering, then suddenly dropped from high in the sky down to a lower altitude, about 3 feet from where I was standing, he said, then rise and suddenly drop again. He said the object moved to the north, then to the south about the same distance, and finally moved rapidly away in the western sky. Ogle County Sheriff Sergeant Richard Wilkinson followed the object from the Rock River to Forreston. He also described it as an amber-colored ball moving away from him at about his own speed. "I'm a doubting Thomas, but it was the weirdest thing I ever saw," Wilkinson said. Polo police officer Robert Hoke saw the object to the north over Mount Morris. He said the object appeared to project its orange flow in a beam toward the ground and move west with occasional stops. It seemed to follow the Burlington Northern Railroad tracks, Hoke said. Mount Morris Police and Carroll County Sheriff's deputies also reported seeing the object in the sky in western Ogle County. Police in Grinnell, Iowa saw an object of the same description at 7:10 p.m. Friday. A spokesman said it changed color from red to orange to white and moved in a westerly direction, hovering occasionally and changing altitude. Police said the lights also went out once. Officials at the Greater Rockford Airport Control Tower, the Chicago Air Traffic Control Center in St. Charles, and the Yerkes Observatory in Williams Bay, Wisconsin, all reported seeing nothing unusual. But the police officers of Ogle, DeKalb, and Carroll counties, and Polo, Mount Morris, and Forreston were all sure they had seen something. Everyone described it the same way, Ogle County Sheriff Jerry Brooks said. An amber glowing object in the sky, with a tendency to move rapidly, then hover. Ogle County deputies were ready for anything as they reported for work Saturday night. There was skepticism mixed with curiosity. Brooks reportedly gave each of his men a Mars candy bar as a peace offering for anyone from outer space. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you liked it. I try hard to find stories people don't often hear about. I also want to remind everyone how awesome libraries are and how helpful they can be to anyone. I personally reach out to libraries around the country through Ask a Librarian feature to help me find articles, and they are always so incredibly helpful. So thank you, libraries and librarians. Check out your local library today. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with everything I post. What state should I cover next? Let me know in the comments. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.